Welcome to using tape diagrams and ratio tables for unit rate. For this video, you're going to need 2 to 3 colors and a highlighter or two. Don't forget, you can pause or rewind if you get behind. And if you'll need your notes that were given out in class and those colored writing utensils. All right, so let's take a look here. Applying tape diagrams and ratio tables to unit rate scenarios. Kenzie and Sam have been training for a half marathon in Disney World. Sam says he can run 8 miles in an hour and 40 minutes. Kenzie says she can run 5 miles in 45 minutes. If their pace stays consistent throughout the entire event, who will win the 13-mile race? So I want to start out by putting everything into common terms. So I see here that my important pieces of information are that Sam can run 8 miles in an hour and 40 minutes, and Kenzie can run 5 miles in 45 minutes. I think I'm going to take this hour and 40 minutes and I'm going to turn it into just minutes. So how many minutes is an hour and 40 minutes? Well, that is going to be 100 minutes. Okay, so think of this as kind of improper fractions and mixed numbers. This is kind of like a mixed number. I want it more of the improper fraction style, just so I can compare everything a little more equally. All right, so I'm going to start out by using tape diagrams for this. I think I'm going to put Kenzie here, and I'm going to put Sam down here. And I think the easiest way is first is going to compare the 8 miles that Sam can run. And we'll figure out what that 8 miles would be in terms of Kenzie as well. So I can easily take this tape diagram and cut it into 8 parts. And that's why I've chosen the 8 also. So I'm going to cut it in half first, each of them. Then, and that's pretty close to being half. Then I'm going to cut it into fourths. All right, and now I'm going to take my fourths and cut all of those in half. And that gives me my 8 parts. And so I'm trying to line things up as best I can. And a tape diagram is really just another representation. So now I'm going to put my miles between the two. So this is mile 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so now I look at Kenzie and I see that she can go, kind of break off this 5 miles here. And she can go these 5 miles, and they tell me that she can go those in 45 minutes. Well, that puts light bulb in my head. Oh, 45 and 5 work nicely together. That means she's running 9 minutes each mile. Okay, so I'm going to put my 9 minutes for each mile in here. All right, well, if I want to compare them on equal basis, when I'm done with Sam, I should be able to compare his 5-mile time to Kenzie's 5-mile time, but I also want to be able to compare the 8-mile times. So based upon this, therefore, these miles are each going to be 9 minutes also. And I see that, okay, that means that the other 3 miles, it's going to take her 27 minutes to do those. All right. So that means for the whole 8 miles, I'm going to add the 45 and the 27, and that's going to give me 2, carry my 1, that's going to be 72 minutes for 8 miles for Kenzie. Okay. Now for Sam, for him, I'm looking at all 8 miles because it tells me his 8 miles are an hour and 40 minutes. So I think to make this easier on my brain, I think I'm going to cut that 8. Actually, let me write my 100 first. So this whole thing is going to be 100 minutes. And then I think I'm going to cut that in half because that should work nicely. So at the 4-mile mark, So now this is 50 minutes. 50 and 50. All right, so that's for 4 sections. And then I think I can do 25s. So for 2 sections. So this is going to be 25, 25, 25, 25. And so that means that each individual section has to be 12 and a half, because 25 divided by 2 gives me 12 and a half. All right, so that means that Sam is running 12 and a half minutes per mile. So I'm going to fill that in for each of them. Okay, so what I've actually figured out here is the unit rate for this. I found out that Kenzie goes at 9 minutes per mile, and by breaking these down, I found that Sam goes at 12 and a half minutes per mile. So there's my unit rate for these. Now, 12 and a half minutes, what is that in terms of actual time? So I'm going to put a little note on the side. So first I'm going to put that I did 25 divided by 2 equals 12 and a half, just so that I remember how I got my information. Then which in time is 12 minutes, 30 seconds, because half a minute is 30 seconds, okay? So that's doing this problem with a tape diagram. Now, this is not the only way you could have set up a tape diagram. There are multiple ways that you could have set up a tape diagram for this particular problem. This is just one strategy. All right, so now let's look at doing a ratio table for this problem. And just to stay consistent, I'm going to keep with having Kenzie on top and Sam on the bottom. Now, with my ratio table, I don't need to line them up as much as I did for my tape diagram. So the tape diagram is really important that I lined up my 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, so on and so forth. With the ratio table, I can kind of do them individually, so it's not going to be as crucial that they get lined up. All right, so I can see that my lines that I photocopied did not come out too well, so I'm just going to kind of draw those back in. Okay. So I'm going to start out with labeling my units here, that I'm going to put miles on top and minutes on the bottom for both of them. Again, I want to at least stay consistent in my format. And my given information was that Kenzie was 5 miles in 45 minutes and Sam was 8 miles in 100 minutes. Now, what I do with the information from there is going to be separate. So I can see that, again, just like before, this 5 really triggers for me. So I'm going to divide by 5 for each of these. And when I do that, that gives me 5 and, or excuse me, not 5, gives me 1. Fix that. Gives me 1 and 9. But I want to figure out what are kind of some of my other points. And I also want to answer the question that this is a 13-mile race, so how long is it going to take them to finish the race? Which I kind of ran out of room up here to do that. I could have divided my tape diagram further into 13 parts and continued with that. But the tape diagram more told me who's faster and what their unit rate, what their time is, and allowed me to compare them at certain landmarks. All right, so for the ratio table, this is going to allow me to more easily calculate what their time is at each mile all the way through. All right, so from here, now that I've gotten down to the 1, I could now just kind of do mile 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess I don't really have to do 5 again. 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so now I can put all the miles in there. And since it's 1 minute for 9 miles, I can just count by 9s. So this is going to be 18, 27, 36, 45, which we already knew because that was already given. 54, 63, 72, 9 times 9 is 81. 9 times 10 is 90. 9 times 11 is 99. 9 times 12, that's 108. And then add 9 more gives me 117. Okay? Now for Sam, for his, I think I'm going to, I can't divide by 5. Like that's just not going to work out pretty. So that's why the ratio table is now helpful to work with numbers that work nicely. So I think for Sam, I'm going to divide by 2. I see that each of these are at least divisible by 2. When I divide by 2, I'm going to get 4 and I'm going to get 50. So it looks like I can divide by 2 again. And when I divide by 2 again, I get 2 and 25. So now, remember with unit rate, we need to get down to that single unit, that 1. So how far are they going for 1 mile? So I divide by 2 again, and that gets me that 1 mile. So I can see that 1 mile is going to be that 12 and a half minutes that we've already discovered. Okay, and so now I'm thinking that I'm going to do, I really like this 2 and 25. And to looking for like future points, like counting by 12 and a half doesn't really work nicely, but counting by 2 and 5, I can count by 2s and that would work so much more nicely. And counting by 25s, that works nicely too. So I think I'm going to do some more of those. So 2, 4, I already have 8, so I need 6, 10, and 12. So let's see. 2 plus 4 is 6. So 50 and 25 gives me 75. And then I need to do the 10. 8 and 2 are 10, which means 100 plus 25 is 125. For the 12, 8 plus 4 is 12. So 100 plus 50 is 150. So here's what's really nice. I got these other points just by adding the stuff I've already calculated. That's great. So I still need to figure out what it is going to be for 13 miles, so the end of the race, just so I can compare that. So I see for 13 miles, how can I get to 13? Well, I could do 6 twice, but I don't really, that's going to be kind of messy. But I see that I can do an 8, a 4, and a 1. If I add those, so 8, 4, and then my 1. So 8 and 4 is 12. 12 plus 1 is 13. So now I should just be able to add the minutes for those. So 100 plus 50 is 150, plus another 12. 50 plus 12 is 162 and a half. So therefore, it should take 162 and a half minutes. All right, well, that doesn't really work all that nicely. I mean, I have no idea how long that is. Not that I really know how long 117 minutes is either. So I think that I'm going to think about what these are in terms of time. So 117 minutes. Well, I know 120 minutes is 2 hours. So therefore, if I'm really close. I'm only 3 minutes away from 117 to 120. So 3 minutes off of 2 hours is going to give me, I'll write it in different color, 1 hour, 57 minutes for Kenzie to complete the race. So 120 minutes is 2 hours. 180 minutes is 3 hours. I'm just multiplying, doing 60 for 60 minutes in an hour times 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So, and I could even make a ratio table for that if I wanted to figure out kind of where this is. So 162, that's definitely going to be 2 hours. And then from 120 to 160 is 40. So that's 42 minutes and 30 seconds because we have that half minute in there. All right, so some conclusions. So if you flip your paper over, we're asking to now, oh, sorry, didn't realize you couldn't see everything that I put down there. So there it is. All right, so now if you flip your paper onto the back, we want to know what are some conclusions that we can draw from this tape diagram and from the ratio table. So you are going to fill that out yourself. I'll get you started, and then you need to fill in the rest. What are some other conclusions? So I think I can conclude a particular conclusion I can draw is that I see right here that it's going to take Sam 50 minutes to go 4 miles, and 9 times 4 is 36, so Kenzie will go 4 miles in 36 minutes. So I think I'm going to write that down as a conclusion. Sam will go 4 miles in 50 minutes. Kenzie will go 4 miles in 36 minutes. So who's going to win who's going to win the race? That's something you can put into your conclusion. So here are 1, 2 conclusions. You need to write 1, 2, 3 more conclusions that you can draw based on the tape diagram and or the ratio table. All right, one last thing that we want to do is we want to graph this data. The ratio table is really nice for creating points that we can graph. So I think that I'm going to put my miles down here at the bottom because that's my independent variable. My dependent variable is going to be my time. I'm going to put my time over here on the side. So I think I'm going to count, I need to get 13 miles in here. I think if I count 2 blocks for every mile, I think that should work. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, and I can even do 14 and 15. They'll fit on here. All right, so next, I want to put my time on the side. I went ahead and pre-counted this and found that I should be able to count by tens for 10-minute intervals. So 10, 20, oh, I want to say that this is time in minutes also. 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes is 1 hour, so I'm just going to put a little note to myself there that that's 1 hour. $120, that's going to be 2 hours. Okay, so, oh, and 180 is going to be 3 hours. And this is, we'll do title at the end. All right, so I need to make a key. So I think that I'm going to do Kenzie in purple, and I'm going to do Sam in red on mine. So you make a key for the particular colors that you are using. And so now I'm going to go back to my ratio table. So I'm going to flip my paper back and forth a couple times. I'm going to plot the points that I calculated. So I'm going to start with Kenzie. So if I look back, I see that she did 5 miles in 45 minutes, 1 mile in 9 minutes, 2 miles in 18 minutes. Oh, and that reminds me. Oh yeah, I just have to count by nines. So if I remember that 1 mile is 9 minutes, I'm going to kind of put that 9 there. 2 miles is going to be 18 minutes. And I have to guesstimate, I have to kind of put the point as close as I can to where it would be. 3 miles is going to be 27 minutes. 4 miles is going to be 36 minutes. 5 miles is going to be 45 minutes. 6 miles is going to be 54 minutes. 7 miles, 7 times 9, 63 minutes. 8 miles is going to be 72 minutes. 9 miles is going to be 81 minutes. 10 miles is going to be 90 minutes. That one's at least finally at a nice point. 11 miles is 99 minutes. Where's 99? Oh, there it is. 11 miles to 99. Let's see, 12 miles I believe was 108, if I remember correctly. That's just below the 110. So it's 12, 13 miles. I don't remember what that was. 13 miles is 117 minutes. 117 is kind of here. Okay, so now I can take a straight edge, and maybe you have a ruler nearby, or if you don't, I don't have a ruler. So I'm going to use the edge of a piece of paper, and I'm going to line my points up, and notice that the points make a line. And this is really helpful because I can then predict future points. So, and because these didn't fall super nicely at exact spots, my line is not as straight as I would like it to be. Okay, so I can see with no calculations at all, that 14 miles should be between 120 and 130 minutes. And I could do what 9 times 14 is, and I could check myself. And 15 miles should be a little over 130 minutes, maybe like 133, that sort of thing. And I can check that by multiplying 9 times 14 and 15. All right, so that's Kenzie. Now I'm going to do Sam. Now this was the one that had the 12 and a half minutes. So I remember that 1 mile was 12 and a half minutes. So that's going to be a little above, so kind of here. But then I remember that the nicer ones were that it would count by 25 minutes. So 2 miles was 25 minutes. And I think that that's what I'm going to go by. 4 miles is 50 minutes. I think I'm not going to do the odd numbered miles because I don't think I'm going to be super accurate at plotting points. So I'm going to do the even numbers that just count by 25 minutes. All right, so 6 miles should be 75 minutes. 8 miles should be 100 minutes, which I believe was what we were given in our problem. 10 miles is going to be 125 minutes. 12 miles is going to be 150 minutes. Okay. So now I could do 13 miles, but I think I'm going to go to 14 miles since it's counting by things that are easier. And then I can make sure that what we calculated for 13 minutes fits between miles 12 and 14. So if I was at 150 for 12 miles, I'm going to add on 25. So that should be 175 for 14. So there's my 170, 175 is between the two. There we go. All right, so now, again, I can use my straight edge. And these, I think, are going to line up a little bit more nicely because I had 5s in there. 5s and 0s work nice. Yeah. This one. There we go. Because both of them should start at 0. So now I can see that if I go up the 13-mile spot, keep going, I see that that should be, and I go over, a little over 160 minutes. Well, let's see if that compares to what we calculated. And sure enough, we calculated 162.5 minutes. So we are right on with our calculations and with our graphing. So I'll go back to the graph in case you need to write it down. What's the one thing that we're missing from our graph? We're missing a title. So I'm going to go ahead and put a title in there. And I think I'm going to call this Kenzie and Sam's running pace. Or you could call it their half marathon, race times, whatever. Any of those would be fine. All right, well, thank you for joining me for tape diagrams and unit rates, tape diagrams and ratio tables as they apply to unit rates. Our unit rate here was how long it took them to go 1 mile. And then we were able to use that to also graph the data to predict future times if they were to continue running. Did you get it all? If not, pause, rewind, go back, and get the information that you didn't get already. Thanks for joining me.